some historic news coming out of Mexico. Ladies and gentlemen, Mexico has elected their first Jewish female president. This is huge news. I heard about it a couple days ago when they said it looks like it's likely that she is going to win. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons. Now, I'm not just going to come on here and shout her out and say, yay, congratulations, because we're going to talk about the pro. But then there's something else I want to show you that Ben Norton actually laid out about the previous president of Mexico, which did give me pause. And it made me think about some things like, you know, who really is the one that was pushing for this? The people? We'll have to see. But yes, Mexico has elected their first female president. What does this mean for Mexico? And is it a sign of what could be to come for the rest of the West?
President Biden is congratulating the first woman to be elected as the future president of Mexico. Claudia Sheinbaum, a climate scientist, the former mayor of Mexico City, will also be the first Mexican president of Jewish heritage. Early results show Sheinbaum winning up to 60% of the vote over her opponent. And this election will not only have major consequences in Mexico, but it could also impact us here in the U.S. President Biden saying in a statement, in part, quote, I look forward to working closely with President-elect Sheinbaum in the spirit of partnership and friendship that reflects the enduring bonds between our two countries. Let's get right to NBC's Guad Venegas live in Mexico City and standing by NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley. Guad, tell us more. Who is Claudia Sheinbaum and why did voters choose her as their next president?
Anna, I should start off by saying that President Biden will be able to have conversations with her in English, something he could not do with current President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Sheinbaum, unlike the last two presidents, López Obrador and Enrique Peña Nieto, is fluent in English. She lived in the U.S. for some time while taking classes at Berkeley and Stanford. As you mentioned, she's an academic. She has a PhD in energy engineering, which gives a lot of hope to Mexicans that have placed a lot of focus on climate change here and on issues with energy, the cost of power, the cost of gasoline. So we expect her to focus more attention on how Mexico can move forward with the issues, sometimes with gasoline prices going up and also the cost of energy. Let's hear from Sheinbaum last night when she spoke to her supporters.
So before we get to her speech, so I wanted you to hear a little bit about her background so that you can see that she is a part of the professional managerial class, right? I didn't want people to just assume, because some people said, oh, wow, Mexico. Oh, okay, great. You know, and just assume that she was like, I don't know, I guess typical. I guess like people assume that she was not a part of like an elite class or academic class, but she is. She is a part of that. So just keep that in mind.
No llegó sola. Llegamos todas. Con nuestras heroínas que nos dieron patria, con nuestras ancestras, nuestras madres, nuestras hijas y nuestras nietas.
So notice what is happening here, right? So she's talking about, you know, the female ancestors and mothers and daughters and grandparents. This kind of reminded me of the way that our media focused on Kamala Harris. She's the first Asian, Black vice president female, and not focusing on, you know, her past in reference to criminalization. We talked about this before when she was attorney general in California, choosing not to focus on the way she treated Black communities in California. And you see what we ended up being stuck with, right? Like Kamala does not seem to be a good choice as vice president. It just is what it is. They're doing the same thing with the president of Mexico. So someone mentioned it in the chat. I think it was Omar who pointed it out. Who cares about gender? I just hope she's a good person. Yeah. So what I hope is going to happen is that people don't get so hung up on the fact that she's a female and totally overlook what she's done in the past and who she is as a person. And it sounds like that's really what they're leading with, whether it's the media, but also in her speech, she led with it as well.
Con los Estados Unidos habrá una relación de amistad, respeto mutuo e igualdad como hasta ahora ha sido. Y siempre defenderemos a las y a los mexicanos que se encuentran del otro lado de la frontera.
Sheinbaum speaking to all Mexicans, but also sending a message to all women in Mexico. We know that today, the news of her being elected is going around the world, the first female president in Mexico in the country's 200-year history. And last night, as you can hear her saying, that all women arrive at office with her together. As she said, llegamos juntas, we came here together, and also sending a message to the United States saying that Mexico will work closely with the United States. There's a lot that they'll have to negotiate, like immigration policy, also the economy. Remember that Mexico and the U.S. not only share a big border, but they're also each other's largest trading partner, Anna.
That's right.
So one of the questions that I have, and this is in reference to foreign policy, the fact that Joe Biden is so happy for her, it shows me that this is someone that Joe Biden approves of. And that makes me wonder about where she stands when it comes to Israel and Gaza. It just makes me wonder again, because just because she's Jewish doesn't mean she supports what Israel is doing. We've seen this time and time again. But I wonder about this. I wonder, especially when we look at the previous president of Mexico and his approval rating. I have some questions. And the Google story that we discussed earlier about Google choosing to send outsourced jobs to Mexico now, it makes me wonder, why is Joe Biden so happy and so excited about her? What is it about her?
And I think it is particularly moving to see a woman elected president in a country like Mexico. As somebody of Mexican heritage, we know machismo is a big part of the culture. And to see a woman, that's just one more note as to how historic this election is. And Julia, what does it mean now for America's relationship with Mexico?
Well, it couldn't come at a more important time, Anna. As you know, we're expecting to hear as soon as this week something on executive action having to do with the southern border. And this policy, as we understand it, will rely heavily on Mexico to do even more than they've already done. We know over the last year, as we've reported here at NBC, the previous administration under López Obrador more than tripled the number of interdictions of migrants going north, most of those U.S. bound. And now with this new executive action, they could be asking Mexico to do even more to take back migrants who won't be allowed to cross the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, we know that in Mexico, they have repeatedly said under the López Obrador administration, which backed Sheinbaum, that they will work with whoever is president. They haven't wanted to come out strongly to criticize Trump or Biden. But we do understand from people within the Biden administration that there's really been a change in the way Mexico has been dealt with, really in a 180 from Trump to Biden, because the Biden administration says they treat Mexico like a sovereign equal, and that they go into these conversations about immigration, about fentanyl, about gun trafficking, something Mexico's really worried about, guns coming illegally from the United States. They're entering those conversations, treating them as equals, not putting pressure on them over trades and tariffs, just like the Trump administration did, and not using some of that really charged rhetoric that Trump did about Mexico when he was president and even currently. So this
is going to be interesting when it comes to immigration, her win and where she stands with that. But it seems like Biden, again, is excited that she won. Now, here's one of the things that she did when she was mayor of Mexico City. This is actually coming from Gabriel Shipton, Julian Assange's brother. I want to show you this here. When she was mayor of Mexico City, President Claudia gave Julian the keys to Mexico City. So this is something that she did that many people may not be aware of. Check this out.
Nice to meet you. Good. Good morning. Good morning.
Oh,
it's good to see you.
It's very good to see you too. Okay, so bye. It's in the city.
Yeah. So that's Julian Assange's brother on the right. That's Julian Assange's father on the left. So that's cool. That's great that she gave Julian Assange the keys to the city. But the fact that the establishment is so happy about her win and she has received the stamp of approval from the media, it gives me pause. because the politicians that the media tends to promote and that they praise are the ones that are part of the establishment, the ones that support the status quo. That's typically how it works. And they'll smear the ones that don't. I haven't seen any smears from mainstream media about her. They are applauding her for the most part. Now, Ben Norton pointing something out about the previous president of Mexico. And this gave me pause. Check this out. I did not know this. Ben Norton said Mexico's president, Andres Lopez, is one of the most popular leaders on earth with an 80% approval rating. 80% approval rating. Ben goes on to say that this is despite media smears and interventions by the U.S. government to try to destabilize him and meddle. So the U.S. government was not fond of Andre. But the people of Mexico apparently were. If he had an 80% approval rating, when's the last time you heard a president of the United States have an 80% approval rating? I sure as hell haven't heard that. So it gives me pause, right? The media didn't like him. They were smearing him. They love Claudia, though. Love Claudia. Listen to what Ben Norton has to say, because he said more about this.
The president of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, known as AMLO, is one of the most popular leaders on earth. And as he is finishing the final year of his 6-year term, he has an 80% approval rating. This is despite the fact that the corporate media has spent years lying about him, viciously attacking him, and the US government has constantly meddled in Mexico's internal affairs. The US government has funded opposition groups and has funded media outlets, which have constantly attacked AMLO, lying about him. And despite all of this, AMLO remains one of the most popular leaders on earth. This was revealed in a poll that was published this May by a US polling firm called Gallup. The polling firm surveyed Mexicans and found that 80% support AMLO. This is an increase from 67% in 2022. Gallup pointed out that this makes AMLO one of the most well-liked leaders in the world. And ever since Gallup began surveying Mexicans in 2006, no other Mexican politician has ever been as popular as López Obrador or AMLO.
So these are just things that we should think about, because it does give me room to pause. Again, I'm not saying you should like her or dislike her, but I think you should look at some pros and some cons. And I always say on this show, we should always be free to ask questions. And that is one of the questions that I have. Like, obviously, someone with a very popular rating, but from what I understand, Andre apparently approved of Claudia. It makes me wonder if someone spoke to Andre. It was over a year ago I covered on this show that Mexico was considering joining BRICS. That fell through. Made me wonder who spoke to Andre. I don't know. But typically, when the media is smearing political leaders, when we start to do our own research, we start to realize, those leaders are not as bad as the media is saying, or the media has been lying about a lot of things. But it's typically leaders that the people really love. And you can see this now. So it makes you wonder again, because what did I tell you guys? Typically, the leaders that the United States loves are the ones that maintain the status quo, and also the ones that are approved by the banks, the ones that Wall Street likes, the ones the military industrial complex likes. So it makes me wonder, because Biden was a little too excited and happy to me.
This is deeply ironic because the US government and the media outlets and opposition groups that it funds have claimed for years that AMLO is supposedly threatening Mexico's democracy. The National Endowment for Democracy, the NED, is a US government organization. It's basically a cutout of the CIA that was created supposedly to promote democracy in scare quotes, but in reality, it is used by Washington in order to meddle in the internal affairs of other countries. In the name of promoting democracy, it actually undermines democracy in order to support the interests of the US government and US corporations. And the NED published an article back in 2023 claiming how AMLO's Strongman Act is weakening Mexico. The media in Mexico has been spreading this ridiculous lie as well for years. Right-wing media outlets have said that AMLO is trying to install an authoritarian system. Right-wing elites in Mexico have been publishing articles in Spanish in the Washington Post and other US media outlets, claiming that Mexico is returning to the authoritarian era of the PRI. In 2020, the editorial board of the Financial Times, the major British newspaper, published an article titled López Obrador becomes Latin America's new strongman.
So notice the way that mainstream media is describing Andre, right? They're trying to make him out to sound like an authoritarian. Where have we seen them do that before? So they've done this obviously with Vladimir Putin. They've done this with Xi Jinping. They do this with other leaders that, for whatever reason, have a good approval rating with the populace. But the US government doesn't like them because they're not willing to do things the way that the US wants them to. And these are things that we really have to consider. So again, like I said, sometimes things are not black and white. I'm not here to tell you you should approve of Claudia. I'm not here to tell you you should disapprove of Claudia. I am here to tell you it's okay to ask some damn questions.
The Mexican leader is revealing himself as an authoritarian populist. When they published this article, AMLO had about 67% support. Since then, it has increased to 80%.
80% is quite a bit, but this story gets a little bit more cuckoo. Check this out. Did you know after Claudia won, this was reported earlier today, after Claudia won, apparently the mayor of Mexico was just gunned down. I kid you not. Peep this, fam. Woman mayor shot dead in Mexico day after Claudia's historic presidential win. This happened today. I don't know if it's connected or not, but we need to talk about this. The mayor of a town in western Mexico was killed on Monday, the regional government said, barely 24 hours after Claudia Sheinbaum was elected the Latin American country's first woman president. Officials say the mayor's bodyguard was also killed in the attack. This woman was gunned down. The Michoacan, I hope I'm saying this correctly, Michoacan state government condemned the murder of the municipal president of Quitoja, Yolanda Sanchez Figueroa. The regional interior ministry said in a post on social media, the murder of the woman mayor comes after Sheinbaum's landslide victory injected hope for change in the country, riven by rampant gender-based violence. The hell is going on? What is going on? So Sanchez was elected mayor in 2021, was gunned down on a public road, according to local media, with one outlet reporting she was shot 19 times outside of a gym. This woman was shot 19 times. According to a statement from the Attorney General's office, Sanchez's bodyguard, identified as Jesus V, was also hit by the gunfire and died. The office said that they were attacked by gunmen inside a white truck who opened fire from the moving vehicle and then escaped. Her Facebook profile says she is defined by my preparation and the desire to make Katoja a better place to live. Authorities have not given details on the murder, but said a security operation had been launched to arrest the killers. The politician was previously kidnapped in September last year while leaving a shopping mall in the city of Guadalajara in the state of Jalisco, which neighbors Mohican. 3 days later, the federal government said she was alive. This is wild, fam. According to local media reports at the time, the kidnappers belonged to the powerful Jalisco cartel New Generation, who allegedly threatened the mayor for opposing the criminal group's takeover of her municipality's police force. So it's like, yeah, Claudia won, but right after Claudia won, the mayor of Katoja was gunned down and killed in broad daylight. 19 times. So that was interesting.